This week on Unapologetic Uplift.
I'm sort of a walking pamphlet with all the weird things that have happened to me.
Even when grief is present, please know that you have permission to also experience joy.
The thing about grief is that it's so tumultuous and it's every emotion all encompassing in one. It's not just sadness or grief. What is it? It's everything.
But joy, man, give me some joy. Give me a flower that blooms or some beautiful thing that I didn't know existed.
I do know some of the statistics around childhood survivors of suicide and how likely they are to commit suicide. The numbers are staggering.
I crave for people to have the safety to be able to have a person that they can share these things with without any elephants left in the room, without any shame around it, and to be able to really debrief.
I was given very graphic details, told exactly what happened, and I think that there should have been a lot of things filtered.
In my case, I found my father, and it was the day after 4th of July. So I heard it.
Wow.
I thought it was a firecracker.
I think there are so many people that probably need to see themselves in me and know that it doesn't define who you are, and you can recover and heal and even help other people with your experience.
I'm dyslexic, and I took a GED to leave high school so that I could go to college early. Who the heck do I think I am?
There's no time for shame anymore. There's no room for it.
Get ready to rise above the noise and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift, the podcast that's all about keeping it real and helping you live your best life. Buckle up. Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on Unapologetic Uplift. New episodes released weekly.
Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift. I'm your host, Kim Staples, joined by my beautiful co-host, Ianthe Mauro, and our incredible guest, Michelle East. Welcome.
Good morning. It's so nice to be here with the both of you. I have butterflies. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure.
I want to say, I actually have butterflies too. And you know why? Because you mean so much to me, Michelle. This is not just a guest, everyone. I want you to know that Michelle and it'll make me teary to say, we've been friends, if I think about it, because I'm not great with linear time. But the truth is, we have been friends for at least 20 years, probably 21, I think, because Asher being 26 and almost 27. That's really significant, right? And the thing too, I was trying to explain yesterday to my mom, who I was interviewing today, and I was telling her all of these things about you. And one of them was, we found each other at the Theatricum Botanicum in Topanga Canyon, California, where we brought our children to study Shakespeare in the park and fencing and things when they were just 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that. But then we discovered later in life that we shared a really close friend in our friend Lydia, who I hope will be a guest at some point. And we shared a lot of things. So I just am so grateful that you're here with us today, Michelle, and that we have this space, this Unapologetic Uplift podcast, so where you can share more of what you're doing now, where you've been all of these years, what's going on. There's so much we could get into. So what's on your heart right now? Like, what is it that you would most want to start with? And we'll go there.
Well, first I want to completely just honor what you just said. I'm really receiving that. Which is my new learning in life, is to really receive and not just go to what can I do for that person because they did that amazing thing for me. I'm wearing the earrings you gave me after the fire today, which are still, I get 10 compliments every time I wear them, even if they get lost in my hair. But the thing that I remembered, besides our kids becoming fast friends, is that I was about 6 months pregnant and feeling awful during that pregnancy. I was barely hauling across town to get to Topanga. And you would keep an eye on both kids or alert me if Caleb needed me. And I would go to my Jeep and nap.
That's
and
right.
and he would be like, "No, you're okay." And I'd be like, "Ugh," you know, and you were totally there for me. So that was my first encounter with you. And yes, our life has just wove itself in and out of very similar experiences at the same time. But as a whole, what I would want the podcast to know is that, so coming out of this year, or coming towards the end of this year, it started with the fire when we lost our home in Altadena in January, and our whole town and community. The whole evolution of the year has been extraordinary and miraculous and painful and filled with all kinds of impossible decisions. And that being away from the States for a few months has given me so much perspective as to what I'm doing in this third act, and this space that we continue to hold between grief and joy. And that's really big. That space is much bigger than I ever thought it was, and maybe I'd never considered it to that capacity before.
The space between grief and joy, I feel, and Kim, I want you to speak too. I just want to say that I so relate to that. And I think that most people listening will too. And it makes me feel like saying, even when grief is present, please know that you have permission to also experience joy. You're a wonderful example of that, Michelle. And I think that's maybe what you mean about the space between. It's not all or nothing. It's not all grief, all joy. It's so nuanced. And you really are so good at doing that. Losing everything in the fires. I mean, there's so much we could talk about here.
Right.
I want to let Kim have an opportunity, though, to say something.
Yeah, when we talk about that place between grief and joy, the reason that a lot of people don't really reflect on that is because grief is one of those things that you don't think about when you're not in it. But when you're in it, it can be all consuming, and it's not just one emotion. The thing about grief is that it's so tumultuous, and it's every emotion all encompassing in one. It's not just sadness or grief. What is it? It's everything.
Right. There's the grief that you are attached to because of someone who is dear to you, that there was a reciprocal love or relationship, right? And then there's the grief that you can't do anything about, which is a loss or something painful that happened. But it doesn't mean that we can't experience that joy too. And I say joy specifically because I'm not really a happiness chaser. Like, happiness is fickle for me and a sort of sustained hum. I do like the extremes. That's how I write. I need all those feelings. I need the full kaleidoscope of the feelings to be able to access. I'm cool with that. I can tolerate that. So there is the grief that just kind of stays with you because you loved or you were loved. But then there's that other, it's there's that other kind of grief that you're like, this is coming around. How we respond to a smell or a sight or a date. Anniversaries are really difficult for me. They carry a lot of weight. So I think about those. I think about self-care in terms of things like that. But joy, man, give me some joy. Give me a flower that blooms, or some beautiful thing that I didn't know existed, or a new idea, or anything to do with neuroplasticity. Yeah. Lay it on me.
It's so great, which is, I would love for you to share just what is your background, because you dropping language like neuroplasticity. So I want you to just let everyone know what your background is,
That's
because
so
it's
fancy.
really amazing. And I don't mean you have to give us your whole bio, but what are the points that you've done a lot of amazing work in your life? So I'd love for you to share what that is.
Thank you. Well, like you, I started out as an actor, but that just came about accidentally because I happened to make a little money at it. And I was like, really? You're going to pay me for this? Okay, cool. And then I got a scholarship to go to Cal Arts, which I was a little late to the game. I think I was like 22 when I got my degree at CalArts, but I think a lot of students are a little older there. But then I just kept acting for a bit, and then it evolved. I always knew I wanted to go into mental health, go into psychology. That was really my first love and first interest. And then I had, yeah, first child came along, and I found myself when I was 9 months pregnant, ready to leave acting, ready to leave the 5 odd jobs that you have to have while acting. And I applied to Pacifica Graduate Institute. And I was like, who do I think I am? I'm from the Inland Empire. I'm dyslexic, and I took a GED to leave high school so that I could go to college early. Who the heck do I think I am? You know what I mean? And that was a lot of like depending on your looks, talent, and things. That wasn't digging deep. So that has evolved into my first love also of horses. And so I do equine assisted therapy and learning, and I conduct workshops. Right now, I'm not seeing individual clients, but I hope to go back to that soon when I have a little more grounding. And that has evolved into now me going back to Pacifica to do my PhD work. And I'm almost a candidate, technically a candidate, so I can't say that just yet. But that is now evolved into this dissertation, which keeps kind of clobbering me and saying, and every time I think, I just want to write about unicorns and sparkles and fun things, but that's not contributing to your field. So, this history, are we trigger warning now? Are we already going to trigger warning this
No,
podcast?
go
It's
go.
Okay.
unapologetic uplift. You
So,
can go
right,
for
that's
it.
right. So, I think one of the topics we want to talk about today is having a family legacy of someone or multiple people, in my case, that has died by suicide. And which happened to me when I was the first one, when I was 13. And the complexities of that are that there are so little services provided for the family constellation in the aftermath, and the narrative is so controlled and so narrow as to what we can and cannot say in public, in private, in a dogmatic way, in an interpersonal way, relational. I just keep seeing the opportunity to make an impact there, because there's still not. We have lots of suicide prevention, we have billboards, we have what they think is a constructive way to go about it. I don't know. I don't know the statistics, so I can't speak to it. But what I know is people will find me and say, if I mention it, they will also have that experience. But we're not talking about it. In fact, we can get kicked off social media for saying the word. We have to
Yeah.
we have to decode. So that's where this is all leading me now, is doing this dissertation and hoping to write a publication in the aftermath.
Wow, so much. So much. And Michelle, as you know, I am a child survivor as well. So thank you for what you're doing, because it is so, so needed. I was 5 when when I experienced it, and it really did shape so much of my life, created so many belief systems based on that initial, it was a core wound for me. And yeah, there was nothing. There were no resources, and I grew up in poverty, so that definitely didn't help the situation either. But I do know some of the statistics around childhood survivors of suicide and how likely they are to commit suicide themselves.
Mhm.
And the numbers are staggering. It's actually quite terrifying. And I have had people throughout my life look at me and say, wow, it's a miracle that you are not addicted to drugs or in a very, very different place.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to honor you and really thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it is such necessary work.
Thank you, Kim. And my heart goes out to you for having to go through that at such a early age. But I think any age is intense, but there's something
Yeah.
about that at 5. Like that's a different developmental stage. Like I would love to go further with this and actually just talk at some point about the going through that at a different age because I was 13. What I'm wondering if you had this experience where there was such a management of like a containment because of the societal norms
Stigma.
and stigmas, and did it just feel like everything had exploded, or did it feel like everything got really small? I was sent away.
Oh, wow. So yeah, for me, there wasn't really much of a filter, to be honest. I actually wish that, looking back, I knew what happened right away. Like
Mm,
the next morning, for a 5-year-old, that was a lot to process. And the way that what happened was delivered to me, I don't think was in the right way whatsoever. Again, like my mom at the time had, I think, a grade 7 education. Most of my family were not educated. So it was just, they didn't know how to filter information to a child. And I was never encouraged not to talk about it or anything like that, which I understand how that would be the case, probably for most people. That
mhm,
wasn't the case. That wasn't the case for me. Nobody knew how to talk about it.
mhm.
So I was given very graphic details, told exactly what happened. And I think that there should have been a lot of things filtered. I mean, they did the best that they could with what they had.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was very unique and different for me in that way.
hmm Yeah, like nobody knows what to do in a moment like that. It's not like you
No,
have a drill in school to prepare. It's just
that's
you
right.
don't even think about it unless it had already been in the family or there had been a warning signal or somebody had attempted multiple times. Yeah, with like this and just thinking about there was no containment and that you were then the recipient of all this information that what do you do with that? In my case, I found my father and it was the day after 4th of July. So I heard it.
Wow.
I thought it was a firecracker.
Oh,
And it's interesting thinking about like the tell me if I go down too many rabbit holes because I start thinking in terms of my background in Jungian psychology. So I'm trying to make meaning, which I have to be careful because sometimes I'm just trying to fix. Am I
mm.
fixing or am I making meaning? Am I trying to tie
Yeah,
this up in a nice tidy package? No, there's no tidy package for this.
there isn't.
I have to
Ooh.
be like expansive enough to be able to hold it all and keep expanding, and yet not disassociate, stay in my heart center. But it hurts to stay in my heart center, but I want out. So where I'm going with this is that like our post experiences are galvanized. Our post act, I guess I need to learn the terminology for that, but it's galvanized as to what we do afterwards. And that's the part that I'm really interested in is what happens afterwards. And
Hmm.
like the first thing that someone said to me when they showed up, my mother was in the back bedroom and she had just been recovering from surgery. And so she was unable to even get up and handle anything at that point. But her best friend showed up and all well meaning. The
Of
first
course.
thing she said to me was she took my face in her hands and said, just forget all of this. Tell your friends it was a brain aneurysm,
Oh.
right? And that person really, with all her well meaning, then all the hormones are happening, the adrenaline, all the things that create that gel in that moment where it does make you remember every single thing. That's what I thought I needed to do for a considerable amount of time. But it was interesting years later when I started writing about it, because I've written a memoir about it that I'm shopping. I had my older brother, who's 10 years older than me, does not like to ever speak of it. I don't think we had a conversation about it since it happened, like a real heart to heart.
Yeah.
And about 3 years ago, I needed to check to see if I had embellished any of my memory or changed, or, if it had just evolved over the years. And he and I he agreed to a conversation, and it was about 3 hours. And our memories were so identical of that day and the before and the after. It was stunning that my
Wow.
12-year-old brain and his 22-year-old brain both understood that we had the same storyline, which I think is probably rare. But yeah, you said we're talking about the shame, and then we take it on as if we had made the decision, because
Yeah.
what is everybody thinking of you at that point? I was in the papers. That was wild. I didn't want to be seen in that or associated with that.
Right. Wow.
Yeah,
What are
Yeah.
the
you
shame
thinking
thing.
about, Ianthe? I see you. I
I'm
see
just,
you
yeah,
working. I see it
I'm,
working.
I know. I'm thinking about so many things. And one of the things that comes up, I mean, both of you to have this in common. And I knew the second that I knew when I found out about Kim's past, and I knew I wanted the two of you to meet, because I crave for people to have the safety to be able to have a person that they can share these things with without any elephants left in the room, without any shame around it, and to be able to really debrief. So the fact that I'm even getting to be in the presence of the two of you who have experienced this horror, both of you, at both such young ages, is remarkable. I feel grateful to be in both of your presence, because you are both so unapologetically free to share what it is that's been so outside of your control, awful, that you had to experience and went through, in order to, I know both of you, help others heal and help others have the permission to be able to share things that are hard for them, that have felt like they're not allowed to say it. And my own personal experience around suicide, which I guess we're saying the word, I don't know either what we're supposed to say and not say, but so we know what we're all talking about. I have this, I can count, and I've never done it, how many people I know who have taken their own lives in my life. And I've always been okay to talk about it to others, but it hasn't been my immediate family. And I know that's not the same. So I don't want to pretend like I know what you're talking about. I don't. And I also do have my own relationship with what it feels like to know a person who has amazing, like constant suicidal ideation and then actually does it. And to know people who have a lot of suicidal ideation and never do it. And both of those, I was kind of feeling into like both of those scenarios. They're both really hard for different reasons. And I wonder if either of you want to speak to either of that. But that's what was on my mind as you were speaking.
So the question is, the people that we just can say SIs if you want to, because we would refer in mental health, we refer to it as SIs. The people that have SIs and then don't actually take their lives. But then there's the people that quietly just do it. That's a really good, that's such a good question. And I don't know the answer, but it seems, well, there's 4 types of suicide. And that's what I'm actually writing a paper on for school right now, is to actually unpack that. I know the statistics are that oftentimes people will actually make the decision to do it when they're feeling better. If people are having cyclical
Exactly. I've heard that.
experiences, because when they start to get better, then they know that they're going to have to go through that again, and they just don't want to go back into that darkness if it has that kind of quantum effect. And then I have to ask myself, since I'm writing this big thing about it, where are the ethics? So take away the dogma. I grew up Catholic, so that was part of the impact of what, who was controlling the narrative. How were we telling this story? We just weren't going to tell the story. That was the
Mm-hmm.
decision. We're just not going to tell the story. But, how does that affect your story in the long run? I painted what I had, the therapist at the time I had that I was sent to. She told me I was tying bows on things because I created a story that, oh, he was sorry for all the, he was really a monster, but he was so sorry for all the things he had done to us that this was his way of saying sorry. And one day that therapist, who was a little prickly already, and I'm literally like 14, I don't have the ability to deal with the power imbalance in the room. She said, oh, after a couple months, she said, no one on God's green earth is going to take their life in front of their children's home for the good of humanity or something like that. This is this is me sitting there needing to create this story in
Yeah.
order to lessen the impact on myself. I needed that story for a while. I needed that
Yeah.
fairy tale, that little bit of my own mythology. I
Yeah.
needed the buffer zone. It was probably a little too soon. I recognize, but that was a while ago. That we had a different way of doing therapy. So
Yeah. And
yeah, how do we tell this story, Kim? What do you
some people, that blows my mind.
I'm so curious how you do that now.
How I tell the story now, I mean, I really don't tell it a whole lot. It is something that I probably should share more about. I'm honest about it when I do talk about it, though. If people want to know, I'm a pretty open book. It's something that like I said, I was never told not to talk about it, so I did talk about it. When my friends would ask where my dad was, I would say that he was dead, and if they asked me what happened, I would tell them. And I guess I'm still pretty much the same. If people want to know, I'm open to sharing the story. I struggled to really go back to it and tell the actual story of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I would disassociate and kind of say it like it was nothing. Oh, my dad did this, and this is what he
Mm-hmm.
did. Until I went to therapy and actually relived the moment. But yeah, it's a part of who I am. It shaped a lot of my life, a lot of my belief systems. I did, for a long time, take sort of responsibility for it, or think things like, I wasn't enough. If I were enough, he wouldn't have done that. So yeah, how do I tell the story? I guess I don't really when I really think about it. I don't tell the story enough, because I think there are so many people that probably need to see themselves in me and know that it doesn't define who you are, and you can recover and heal and even help other people with your experience.
Mm-hmm. And that's so potent what you're saying. And then there's that moment where you do tell the story. This is something that has happened to me my whole life. I don't know if you've experienced this. My husband started to notice it, especially as I stopped telling the story more often, because in school, yeah, but there's not that many right moments to tell people this
Right.
information, because it causes a change in temperature in the room, but there'll be a change in the way that they see you. I call it the
Yeah.
thorn. My friend found that word for me, thorn. It's an old word from Watership Down, which is like a horror. It's almost like a horror in their face, and sometimes they're masking it and trying not to.
Yeah.
But a very upsetting story, and I don't want to harm people with the story. It's a
Right.
lot. It's a lot to read. It's a lot to hear, but What is still difficult for me is that they see me differently afterwards.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's great because it's compassion or empathy. That's great. I don't really need that because I can do that now because I have the strength and the perspective about what happened. But there is a change that comes over them. Pity's the worst. I despise pity. That's rough. I also grew up with some food scarcity and in and out of poverty in that sense, in my immediate family. But yeah, that moment where then they see you differently, and then they have to decide. I'm sort of a walking pamphlet with all the weird things that have happened to me. Like, so your mom is a child of an adult alcoholic. So your mom is the suicide survivor. Like, all of these things. It's complex, that part. That's why my inner circle is tight. They know the stories. I don't have to retell those stories. So to do it in a professional environment and even start, even tip of the iceberg talking about it with the both of you, there's a whole lot I wouldn't share in this space because it's going to be very activating for someone. And I guess that's why we still have trigger warnings and that's why they're necessary because you can choose to listen to that or not. But yeah, I come with many trigger warnings.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
probably should, but I don't.
Well,
And
the podcast does in general. The podcast does in general. I mean, that's the entire thing is we're going to out elephants in the room. We're going to do it unapologetically. So anyone listening already knows they wouldn't listen if they weren't prepared. It's not going to be like surface stuff and cute DIY. And although that would be fun maybe one day, but
Do you
we're
think
going
that
deep.
takes away, and going back to the shame, I'm really curious because there's so much fodder for thinking about this. Do you think that shame is attached to the trigger warnings? Like, is there a connection there?
Probably. There could be. Depends on who's saying it. Like I never give a trigger warning, but I think that just by virtue of who I am, I do in a way, I just don't use those exact words. I don't say literally trigger warning, but I will say, I think that I do in the way that I speak to people, make sure, check in, like I can tell you about this if you want to hear the more of the details. It's pretty
right.
gnarly. That would be my way of doing it. I think that, and that yeah, shame. Oh, we've talked a lot about shame here and how shame causes literal inflammation in the body, which then causes disease and how there's no time for shame anymore. There's no room for it. We really work hard, Kim and I both on really not allowing shame to make any decisions for us or stop us from speaking what's on our heart, mind. But I do think that sometimes with trigger warning, there's shame because it's like you're saying, this might be so awful. I don't know. There's that could be in it. And it could
Yeah.
also just be, I want to protect you, which we all have that protective mama energy too, all three of us, of we don't want to cause you undue stress and harm. And this is going to be a gnarly story. Do you want it or not? There's that too. And that's not shame. That's protection.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it depends on the audience for me. If I'm in a setting with a client, I will always get permission before I share something that might be triggering. On this podcast, there's no trigger there's no trigger warning. I've never really thought about shame around it. I think that there could be in terms of saying something you're not supposed to or doing something that you're not supposed to. Like what is shame? How do you know something is shame? Well, you know it's shame because you feel like you can't talk about it. So,
Right.
Yeah. And this, yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, it is all part of the shadow work we do. But I think in these days, I can say I know what is mine and what is somebody else's to be able to have the discernment. Again, really nuanced. But is that mine or does that belong to someone else? Or
yeah.
am I just really mad that Danny Kaye was not my father? That I didn't have this, like, I used to have.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's a fun fact about the other side of this. So I'm adopted. I didn't know I was adopted. I wouldn't find out for 10 more years that my father was not my biological father.
Wow.
So there's an old school way of looking at adoption, and I get it. I'm actually really close to my birth mother, and I've met finally both sides of the family, and I actually just spent time with my birth mother in the Pacific Northwest. But it's a layered shame with this. Like, I still don't fully understand why I wasn't told, because we had other adoptees in our family. But when I did find out, when I think I was 21, there was a release of that shame, to know that I wasn't biologically connected to, I call him my
Wow.
minotaur. That's what I end up calling him, to not have to release his name. But there's layers of that. And I think it takes us a long time to figure out what is ours to cope and work with and regenerate, and what we just continue to carry for the people that made decisions, who were our caregivers or friends or family. That it was a decision, even if it was made in pain or haste or unmentionable circumstances, it still was
Yeah.
a decision. And that is like throwing a nuclear bomb into a family.
Oh, and you kind of alluded to it, but I really want to know what you would suggest if there's a parent listening right now who has an adopted child and they've chosen not to tell them that they're adopted. What do you say about that? Like, what do you think works? And did you always know there was something there, even though you weren't told until you were 21?
I didn't know. I have a similar speaking voice and demeanor as all of my cousins. I have a big Italian Catholic family. We're northern, so we don't, it's not so, giant, the affect. But I didn't know. I didn't even have a clue. It like I got a cold spot in my body. I always check my somatic response. I just got a little cold spot on my shoulder thinking about it. That it's like chilling. It has a chilling kind of feeling. I don't fully understand why. I think there's deeper, darker reasons that I still don't know. And my mom has since passed in 1997, so I can't ask her. But I would say, in making that decision, consider that the adoptee deserves their story. We all
Mm.
deserve our story. I
Yeah.
still can't look at my birth certificate without a judge's court order. I've never seen my original birth certificate.
Wow.
It's a closed adoption, which isn't done very often anymore, but I have heard of a few people making that decision. But what I would say is, consider that, and that at some point they're going to want to know. You're going to want to know if you have siblings, or if you have a family, just to understand, for the very least, your medical history.
Yeah.
It's still done. It's still quiet. I do know of a few people who have actually come to me and said, because I was on an adoption reform podcast a few years back, but it's going to come around. It's eventually, people are going to find you. I had given up on finding my father because we didn't have his name, my biological father, but there was good old ancestry.com, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Three more siblings. I think there's seven sisters at this point. One
Wow.
Wow.
dad, all different mothers.
Wow.
Wow.
We're not going to say the P word, but we know we know where we're going with that. That's a whole nother show. But there was a release of shame when I found out he wasn't my father. And then there was also this new complicated problem: is, now what do I do? Now where do we go with this? What
Yeah.
happens now?
Well, the
Because
lie, because
then,
that was your
yeah,
story, and then it's not your story in a way. I mean, it is, but it's in a different. There's a different angle to the story now.
there's a totally different angle. That's where I'm at with that, is that the to integrate the information And this leads me up to another opportunity to say something about in the parenting world. I don't know. I think you should just I think it should be their bedtime story. But it's tricky because then you have to be careful of like, we chose you. Because if you're an adoptee, you never actually get to be yourself. There's that old thing they say, you're someone's joy, you're someone's sorrow. Okay, when do I just get to be myself? Do I get to just eventually come into the world here and not save your marriage or not make you a family or a parent? When do I just get to be human and understand what it means to just be myself? And there's all kinds of stuff in there with attachment theory and that.
Yeah.
But this leads me into another question, Kim, and both of you. I'm just so curious. When did you tell, or have you told your kids about their legacy? That was a
So,
defining moment for me.
yeah, so I have 5 biological kids, and 3 of them are technically adults now, 18, 22, and 24. And then I have 2 little ones that are 9 and 7. So the 9 and 7-year-old don't know how my dad died. At this point, it's just that he was unwell and he died when I was a child. Yeah, I'm not sure. I will tell them at some point. I just don't feel ready to tell them at 9 and 7. And then my adult children, it was the same. I didn't want to share that with them as young children, which could just be a result of my own trauma from it. But also, I feel like I just want to preserve their innocence a little longer. But my brother told his children when they were quite young, and they told my children. So then I had no choice but to have the conversation with them about it, which I wasn't thrilled about. So yeah, I'm not sure when I'm going to have the conversation with my 9 and 7-year-old. I don't see it happening, maybe when they're teenagers.
Yeah, I think I told my oldest when he was 10, but I think I also told, and he didn't say anything to the younger, but I think the younger was actually 8. And I think we were somewhere that was, I don't know, something just came up and it just came out. But my younger was able to process more difficult information sooner in her life
Yeah.
anyway. And so,
I feel like my
yeah.
9-year-old is like that. And it could happen if something came up, if the topic came up, there just hasn't felt like the time was right. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm
And
not
then
sure. I
when,
I think intuitively I will know when when the time is right to have the conversation.
yeah, like you're including them in the legacy, but you're freeing them up from holding it. You're not giving it to them saying, now this is yours. You're saying, this is what happened. You get to say who you are from here on out. Yes, it is
Yeah.
part of your story, but you don't have to carry that. Let the Gen
Yeah.
Xers take the heat.
Yeah.
Let the Gen
Yeah.
Xers absorb everything for you. But we did make a day of it. My youngest is in film and wanted to make like a mini doc. And since I
Wow.
was deep in writing, we went to Pomona. I took both kids to the spot where it happened. And it also, again, our stories and the story we tell ourselves to feel better until we can handle the bigger story or the shadowy part that we couldn't really cope with. I didn't know how poor I was during that time. It was just my mom and I because my parents had divorced. But I didn't realize how bad it was. When I went back to the scene in this little 2-story apartment building, where it had happened, because he did it right in front of the apartment there under the stairs. And I didn't realize how bad it was. Just you're 10
Yeah.
years old, 11 years old, you're just remembering like that. And so that was a real bonding experience with the kids. And it wasn't, like, oh, crying and tearful. And it actually was really quiet and reverent. And just the sense of sorrow. There was so much
Mm-hmm.
sorrow left there for me, for so many people. That's what I experience right now as I'm retelling this to you, that just the level of compassion I feel for everyone. And it's not like altruistic, like, oh, I have to conjure this. I actually really am at a point in my life where I do feel that for everyone involved, that everybody was doing their best. They were
Yeah.
also deeply locked into addiction, codependency, which we use way too much, but there was that. And just everything had so fallen apart. But then the kids
Yeah.
and I went nearby, and we went to my parents' graves, which weirdly they were buried next to each other, which just is the biggest, like,
Wow.
what's this? I can't go back there again, but we did. And I just took them on a little day out in my neighborhood in Pomona, which I rarely can go back to. I can't breathe very well when I'm out there, but
Mm.
it was important to be at that spot and understand what had happened.
Mm. Wow. And whew, one thing that a mentor taught me when my kids were really young was that when you have something to share that you feel is difficult to share with your kids and you're not certain that it's even age appropriate, I was taught that you share it a little bit and then you see if they have questions, because their questions will be age appropriate, rather than creating a whole story that you go to them and you say, so here's how it happened, start, finish, and and you do this whole thing where you've practiced it but you just simply say, yeah, I lost my dad. And then you wait. Do they ask? They may not. They may. And the same thing with when it comes to talking about sexuality and sex. When you go to your children, you say to your children, instead of the birds and the bees, and here's how it's done, and the penis and the vagina, and instead you start with, do you have any questions about how babies are made? And you see they will ask you the exact age appropriate question, which you then just respond only to that question, and it continues that way. I remember that. And I also remember there is something as the age of 7 where children, there's developmentally, and correct me if I'm wrong, because both of you have done a lot of this work, but what I'm remembering is there is something that happens at 7 years old where they're capable of handling bigger concepts. They're capable of more empathy and certain things needed to handle these kinds of hard conversations. So I just remember that as being a marker. And of course, in the Waldorf education, which I was raised with a lot of that Rudolf Steiner work, it's 7 years old is the age of knowing and reason and all sorts of things. And they say that at 7, you can actually see fairies if you look for them in the forest. And I want to believe that's true, and that we can
It's
keep doing
definitely
that.
true. I believe in
We
all
know
things
it's true.
fairies. We know that I mean, seriously, when people say, "Oh, do you believe in this and that?" It's like, no, I believe in fairies. Yeah.
Yeah,
I spend
absolutely.
2/3 of my time doing dream work and studying mythology, and so yeah, all of that.
And with all the
Massive
the
work.
things that we've talked about, I want to point this out. So Michelle is one of my rare friends who totally gets it that when you find a little acorn on the ground and you can place it in such a way that you're going to invite the fairies to come and create little areas. And Michelle has an incredible way of setting up little places for fairies and elves and things to come and gather and feel welcome. And also she's an amazing photographer and did some photography for my candle company, Objects of Purpose, years ago. But it's so amazing that way that you have that in you too, because I used to spend time on the playground at recess when I was a little kid. Everyone was doing, volleyball, not volleyball. What's that one? Tetherball or something. And I didn't want to play with any balls. I went out to the grass and I would pick up bits of trash and try to make it look like cute little scenarios, and in hopes that fairies would come and hang out. So that's something you and I have always had in common.
And it's almost like we were setting up little theaters for them.
Yes.
We were making little proceedings. I have it. It is the first thing I do is set up a workspace. And especially after traveling this summer, I just have my little core workspace. But it is fun to have everything all set out again. And I get you. I get you on that.
And let this be also I want everyone to see this as an example. So you can have these things happen to you in life that are so difficult, losing your home to the fires, everything in that. We didn't even really touch on that, Michelle, but starting out with that core wound of suicide in your family, your immediate family, all of these things that happen along the way, and you can still believe in fairies, and you can still create beauty, and you can still be in awe of the flower that blossoms that you notice on the path. All of this can exist, and we all have this opportunity. So you're such a beautiful example, both of you, of that ability, that beautiful resilience to be in awe still, no matter what it is that has come into our path that's been difficult. So thank you for being my friends.
So beautiful, Ianthe. And the one thing I was worried about after the fire and going through those first few 4 or 5 months were the worst. And again, thank you for the beautiful things that you sent and the care package. And I mean, just putting me in beautiful clothes, flowy, beautiful clothes. But I was worried that I wouldn't find, oh, this is big. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to feel wonder again because that's such a tender emotion and it's organic the way that it shows up. And
yeah, you can't manufacture wonder.
you can't, like, you can create little joy traps for yourself. You'd be like, oh, thank you, me. I got a new puzzle in the mail or something like that, right? You can create those things. But wonder is attached to innocence. And innocence is tricky for me. I don't remember much of it. Or if I did, it was pre-verbal, but yeah, wonder came back and it came back many, many times. And also the other stuff sits there too. But I want that to be like the forward flavor that like wonder forward, please. So I know it's still there. I know I still have the capacity. I know there's still a lot of heavy things I need to face, as well as being back in the world of writing this dissertation that hopefully will be a body of work that contributes to my field and to humans and develop my equine assisted therapy practice into being able to serve that community who holds that legacy. And not just immediate family, but the whole, we call it the constellation, the family constellation, that's made up of chosen family and friends and anybody who was there and present and still in the lives of someone that made the decision. Yeah. But there's one thing that is now downloading to me that we're talking about our need for beauty, our need for, I serve beauty. I serve beauty. It's such a driving force for me. But when I was just at the Oxford Trauma Conference, one of the things that they're really bringing to the table in trauma work is called neuroaesthetics. And I feel so seen because it's using the modality of EMDR, of trauma-informed care, but inviting things that the client feels are beautiful, natural. Scent increases memories, and by 30%, they're finding. Look at what you do.
I had people after the fire.
World.
Yeah. And I had people after the fires that said to me, I miss the scent because they had always had my candles. And so I sent them the candles. You were one of them. And I have another client that she had wanted me to send her a candle every month. For the past 6 months, I've been sending her one in the scent gifted because that was the thing that she remembered. And you're so right. And it makes me think too, there's a little trend that I'm loving. And I too feel seen by this trend, which is, I think they're calling it dopamine decor. So you just put things in your house that give you this dopamine. It makes no sense. It doesn't have to be practical, but it makes you feel good when you see it. And maybe that's whatever that is for you. Also, I always try to be the person on Unapologetic Uplift that makes sure that we define terms, and I completely let it go. And I didn't ask you to define. Would you please quickly tell everyone what is equine therapy and what is family constellation? Because I think those two things, since you mentioned them both twice, I want to make sure everyone knows what that means.
So I am not a clinical therapist. I'm trained as a counseling psychologist and marriage family therapy, but I really didn't work in that for very long because I'm not an office girl. I don't do well in office. I was then trained in horticultural therapy, which is gardening, basically gardening with kids and talking about stuff when they show up. Let's see. First definition, remind me which one are we?
What is
Equine
equine
assisted
therapy?
therapy.
Yeah.
Right. So horses have a superpower, which is they mirror emotions to the other animals in the herd in order to create safety and a symbiotic experience that basically that's how they communicate. They also have a huge heart force field. They have their magnetic field is so heart centered. And since they mirror emotions back to you, it's really great to work with clients who don't want to have been through unspeakable things and are not ready to even speak those things out loud. You're doing everything through your neuro system, through your response. Also, the tactile experience. For me, it's the sense. I love the smell of horse poop and the hay. And for me, that's like the height. There's a candle for you, Ianthe.
Horse poop. I love it.
Horse,
Okay.
just call it
So you
muck.
literally, yeah. So you really work
Muck.
with muck, people and horses. And then what is family constellation? What's the
Oh,
second one?
so
Family
just on that
constellation.
note, yeah, with the
Yeah.
equine therapy, is that it works as a complementary modality of therapy to complement more traditional types of therapy, because most people do need that talk therapy as the component. Again, we need to tell our story, we need to work through these themes. That's just my absolute love. And then family constellations is a more accessible, and I think just a little more poetic word for internal family systems. And that is a relational type of psychology where you're able to identify parts of yourself in recalling or identifying with family members. And that can be really helpful. I think we're moving towards a relational type of psychotherapy in general, especially after being in England and understanding what the EU is doing. And some people are saying that psychology is actually going to start branching off. So, where we have psychology, philosophy, and then neuroscience. Because I wish I had a medical brain, because the neuroscience that's coming out right now and our ability to heal our brains, to work with vagal nerve, to create just more wellness, because we're all just carrying so much stuff, and the world is not an easy place right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just doing a little tiny bit of the work.
And is there any way that people can find you, work with you? Are you offering now any way people can work with you, or is that coming in the future?
It is coming at the beginning of the year. There's still a lot to contend with the House. And so I'm redefining, revamping, and I have about a year and a half to go for my PhD work, and winding that up and down and all over. But yes, TBA, it's in the works. It's time. It's time to, yeah, yeah,
So
after
depending on when
January.
you're depending on when you're listening to this, everyone, that would mean sometime in 2026 and certainly 2027. I'm sure you'll be able to work with Michelle in special, amazing ways with equine or not. I mean, I can only imagine the ways that you're going to find to work with people and
Thank
what
you.
you
But I
offer.
can offer, if you have people in different areas, I absolutely can offer connections and referrals for you as well. Because I know there's not that many places in the States, but I'm more than happy to be a resource for that.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. And this went by really fast for me. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it did.
I feel like there's so many things we can talk about. So maybe you'll even come back. Maybe we'll even have you back because there's so much here.
Yeah.
It's a lot of content we all walk around with. It's such an honor to be here in this space with you all and talk about these hard things. And I felt very safe. And I hope I offered that in return.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was so
Always.
nice to have you and to hear more about you. I feel like I could sit here all day and just talk to you and listen.
So thank you. And Will, we really want, this is a special distinction. You are our first guest of season 2 of Unapologetic Uplift. I just realized that.
Yes.
I'm going to send you a candle to mark the occasion. Which you haven't smelled yet, the Garden of Eden. Yes. And we have Truth Bomb lip gloss coming out. So Truth Bomb lip, BALM. We'll have to send you one to try. That's
Truth
also
bomb. Come on, that's amazing.
yes,
That's
yes.
incredible.
For Unapologetic Uplift. So thank you, Michelle, my dear friend, and so glad that you could be with us today.
It's such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Kim.
Oh, thank you. Favorite day of the week. And for anybody listening, please leave us a review, share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Thanks for joining us on Unapologetic Uplift. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share the love and tell a friend about us, and give us a review.
Please don't miss a thing. Subscribe to this podcast and explore our sponsors, Objects with Purpose, Eco Luxury Candles, and Divine Activation membership.
Objects with Purpose is more than an eco-luxury candle brand. They are time travel devices in the form of a candle. Light the 3 wicks representing past, present, and future with the validation that you are exactly where you need to be. And if you're ready to raise your level of consciousness and step into your unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era, join the Divine Activation membership at cuttingties.coach/queen. With 3 tiers to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit to support your transformation.
Thank you for your listening and love. We'll see you next Wednesday on Unapologetic Uplift.
Welcome to the Divine Activation membership, a movement for women that are ready to raise their consciousness and step into their unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era.
With your heart, live authentically and become the magnet for all of your soul's desire.
Grow, connect with your heart and body, release unhealthy and unhelpful thought patterns, heal old wounds, create new neural pathways, and reprogram your subconscious with high-value beliefs so you can manifest the life you're meant for.
Ready to take a break from what's holding you back? Visit cuttingties.coach and join the Divine Activation membership today. Hey, unapologetic souls. I'm Ianthe Mauro, founder of Objects with Purpose, candles that touch the soul and the body. I've released a limited edition 3-wick candle collection in 3 fragrances inspired by a time in history. The Time Travel Collection, because scent evokes memory and lighting a candle can truly transport you to your highest self. Anytime.
Ianthe's candles are truly special, clean, safe, even for the body as a solid perfume or massage oil, and smell amazing. But what truly fills her heart is empowering others to be seen in their best light.
In 2020, when the 200 stores that sold my candles across the country closed their doors, I knew it was time to give back. I started guiding others to launch their own candle companies and design candles and fragrances for other brands as a way to share light in a dark time.
So why settle for just any conventional candle? Light the 3 wicks in each Objects with Purpose candle. You're supporting handmade in California, small batch, artisanal, eco-luxury, and treating yourself to a memory-evoking evolution. Visit ianthemauro.com to discover your next favorite candle. Let the olfactory experience inspire cherished memories.